The torch flames cast dancing shadows across Lyra's face as Alpha King Kaelor's fingers gripped her chin, tilting it upward until their eyes met. His cold dark gaze burned into hers with an intensity that stole her breath. The wedding feast had ended hours ago, and now they stood alone in the royal chamber, the weight of destiny pressing down on them like a physical force. "In the next 10 winters, you'll give me 10 sons," Kaelor said, his voice low and commanding, each word falling like a hammer blow against her heart. Lyra's pulse thundered in her ears. Her left wrist, hidden beneath the long sleeve of her wedding gown, suddenly flared with heat. The Moonfire mark, the forbidden gift her dying mother had warned her never to reveal, began to glow beneath the fabric. She felt the power stirring, responding to her fear, her defiance, her refusal to be reduced to nothing more than a vessel for prophecy. Her eyes didn't waver from his. She didn't lower them in submission as any Omega should. Instead, something fierce sparked in their depths, something that made the Alpha King's grip on her chin tighten ever so slightly. "And what if I refuse?" The words escaped her lips before wisdom could stop them. The moment hung suspended between them, dangerous and electric. But the prophecy wasn't about sons alone. It foretold that the mother would decide the fate of the Alpha King himself. And on this wedding night, neither of them knew that the first threads of that fate were already being woven. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy werewolf stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. 3 weeks earlier, Lyra had been kneeling in her small garden behind the cottage she shared with no one, her hands deep in the earth, when the royal envoys arrived. She'd heard them before she saw them, the thunder of hooves shaking the ground, sending birds scattering from the trees in panicked flight. Her village, Millbrook, was so small it didn't even have a proper market square, just a clearing where farmers traded vegetables and gossip in equal measure. Royal envoys never came here. Lyra rose slowly, brushing dirt from her worn dress, her heart already beginning to race with a premonition she couldn't name. Through the gaps in her fence, she watched the villagers gather, their faces a mixture of fear and excitement. The lead envoy, a stern woman with silver threading through her dark hair, held a scroll sealed with the king's mark. By order of Alpha King Kaelor, the woman's voice rang out clear and authoritative, a bride must be selected to fulfill the ancient prophecy. Every unmated female of age is to present themselves for consideration. Lyra's hands clenched at her sides. She'd heard the whispers, everyone had. The prophecy spoke of 10 sons born to protect the kingdom for 1,000 winters. The king needed a mate, a mother for these destined children. But surely they wouldn't choose someone like her, an orphan with no family name, no status, no pack affiliation. "That includes you, girl." A guard had appeared at her fence, his eyes sharp as he studied her. "Stop hiding and join the others." The selection process was brutal in its efficiency. The royal envoys assessed each woman with clinical precision, checking bloodlines, examining physical health, testing wolf forms for strength and stamina. Lyra stood in line with 24 other women, trying to make herself invisible, praying they would pass her over. But when the head envoy reached her, the woman stopped. Her nostrils flared as she scented the air around Lyra, and her eyes narrowed with something that looked almost like recognition. "You," the envoy said slowly. "What's your lineage?" "I have none," Lyra answered honestly. "My mother died when I was 12. I never knew my father." The envoy circled her like a predator assessing prey. "Your scent, it's unusual. Ancient. Show me your wolf." Lyra's blood turned to ice. She couldn't shift, not here, not in front of everyone. Her wolf carried the Moonfire mark, visible in the ethereal glow that surrounded her fur. Her mother's dying words echoed in her mind, "Never let them see what you are. They'll either worship you or destroy you, and both paths lead to the same end." "I said shift," the envoy commanded, her voice crackling with alpha authority. The compulsion hit Lyra like a physical blow. Her body responded before her mind could resist, bones cracking and reforming, fur rippling across her skin. In moments, she stood on 4 legs, her wolf form smaller than most but undeniably present. She'd managed to suppress the glow, pushing the moonfire deep down, but the effort made her tremble. The envoy's eyes widened. Remarkable. Your wolf has the bone structure of the ancient lines, the ones that died out centuries ago. His Majesty will want to see you. No, Lyra wanted to scream, but wolves couldn't form human words. She shifted back, her hands shaking as she pulled her clothes back on. This is a mistake. I'm no one. I can't possibly be what the king needs. The prophecy chooses, the envoy said simply. Not us. You'll come to the palace. Pack your belongings. We leave at dawn. That night, Lyra sat in her cottage, staring at the small bag she'd packed. She could run. She should run. But where would she go? The king's reach extended across the entire realm. And if she fled, they might hurt the villagers, punish them for harboring a fugitive. Her wrist tingled, and she pushed up her sleeve to look at the mark. The moonfire symbol glowed softly in the darkness, 3 crescent moons intertwined with flames. Her mother had told her it was a gift from the old gods, a power that hadn't been seen in generations, the ability to call upon lunar fire, to heal or destroy with equal measure. But such power came with a price. Those who wielded moonfire were said to burn themselves out, consumed by the very gift that made them special. If I must go, Lyra whispered to the empty room, then I'll find a way to survive. I'll hide what I am. I'll fulfill whatever role they demand. And when the time is right, I'll disappear. But fate had other plans. The palace rose before her like a mountain of stone and ambition, its towers piercing the sky, its walls thick enough to withstand any siege. Lyra felt impossibly small as she crossed the threshold, led by guards through corridors so vast her entire cottage could have fit inside them 3 times over. Other selected women were already there, dozens of them, each more beautiful and refined than the last. They wore fine dresses and jewels, their hair arranged in elaborate styles. Lyra, in her simple homespun dress with her hair in a single braid, felt their contemptuous stares like daggers. Look what the envoys dragged in, one woman said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Did they scrape the bottom of the barrel so thoroughly they found dirt underneath? Laughter rippled through the group. Lyra kept her eyes down, her face carefully blank. She'd endured worse than aristocratic mockery. She could endure this too. But then the doors at the far end of the hall crashed open, and every woman fell silent. Alpha King Kaelor entered, and the very air seemed to thicken with his presence. He was younger than Lyra had imagined, perhaps 28 or 29, with black hair that fell to his shoulders and a face that would have been beautiful if not for the hardness in his eyes. He moved with lethal grace, each step deliberate, his gaze sweeping across the assembled women with cold assessment. Lyra felt the moment his eyes found her. The world seemed to tilt, and beneath her sleeve, her moonfire mark flared with sudden, shocking heat. She bit the inside of her cheek to keep from gasping, tasting blood. What was happening? The mark had never reacted to anyone before. Kaelor's steps slowed as he approached her section of the room. His nostrils flared, and she saw confusion flicker across his features before his expression smoothed back into impassive control. You, he said, stopping directly in front of her. Look at me. Lyra raised her eyes, and the moment their gazes locked, she felt it. A pull, deep and primal, like a cord had been tied around her soul and yanked tight. This wasn't just attraction. This was something older, something that made her wolf howl inside her mind. What's your name? Kaelor's voice had softened, barely perceptible, but she caught it. Lyra, Your Majesty. His hand reached out, and for a terrifying moment, she thought he would touch her face. But instead, his fingers hovered in the air between them, trembling almost imperceptibly before he pulled back. She'll do, he said abruptly, turning to address the palace priestess who had been observing from the shadows. This one. Prepare her for the ceremony. The other women erupted in protests and gasps of outrage, but Kaelor silenced them with a single raised hand. The selection is complete. The rest of you may return to your homes with the crown's gratitude for your participation. As guards began ushering the rejected candidates out, the priestess, an elderly woman with eyes like chips of ice, approached Lyra. "Come, child. We have much to discuss and little time." The priestess's chambers were filled with ancient texts and smoking censers that filled the air with cloying incense. Lyra sat rigidly in a chair while the old woman circled her, much as the envoy had done in the village. "Do you know why you're here?" the priestess asked. "The prophecy," Lyra answered carefully. 10 sons in 10 winters to protect the kingdom." The priestess's laugh was dry as old bones. "That's what everyone believes, yes. But prophecies are rarely so simple. You've been chosen not just to bear heirs, but to carry the weight of destiny itself. The kingdom stands at the edge of darkness. A curse ancient and terrible is spreading across the land. Crops fail. Children are born sick. The old magic is dying. What does that have to do with me?" "Everything." The priestess leaned close, her breath hot against Lyra's ear. "The 10 sons are meant to be warriors, yes. But they're also keys. Each one will unlock a portion of the curse, weakening it. And you, their mother, you're the vessel through which this salvation will flow." Terror gripped Lyra's heart. "I'm just a village girl. I don't have any special power." The priestess's eyes glittered knowingly. "Don't you? I can smell it on you, girl. Something old. Something forbidden. But don't worry. Your secret is safe with me, for now. The king needs you too badly for me to expose what you are. Yet." The wedding took place 3 days later, a grand ceremony attended by nobles from across the realm. Lyra stood beside Kaelor in a gown of silver and white, her hands clasped in front of her to hide their trembling. The vows were traditional, ancient words about duty and lineage and the bond between Alpha and Omega. But when Kaelor placed the crown of the queen upon her head, when his hands rested on her shoulders and his eyes met hers, she felt that pull again, stronger now, undeniable. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. "I'll not force anything upon you." But later, in the royal chamber, his words took on a different tone. The tenderness vanished, replaced by the cold determination of a king who'd been raised to put duty above all else. "In the next 10 winters, you'll give me 10 sons." It wasn't a request. It was a command, a destiny he'd accepted and now expected her to embrace. Lyra felt her moonfire surge in response to her defiance, felt it threatening to break free and reveal itself. She pushed it down with desperate force. "And what if I refuse?" The words were out before she could stop them, reckless and dangerous. Kaelor's eyes darkened. "Refuse? You're my mate now. My queen. The prophecy demands this." "The prophecy," Lyra said, her voice shaking but steady, "doesn't own me. Neither do you." For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then, to her surprise, he released her chin and stepped back. "You're right," he said slowly, as if the words were foreign to him. "I cannot force this. But understand, Lyra, the kingdom is dying. Without those 10 sons, without the fulfillment of the prophecy, everyone we know will suffer. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to help me save our people. If you're loving this story so far, don't forget to show some love by hitting that like button and dropping a comment below. Let us know what you think of Lyra and Kaelor's dynamic. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. The first winter arrived with bitter cold and bitter truth. Lyra was pregnant. She'd felt it within days of their wedding night, a strange new presence in her body, a life growing that was part her, part Kaelor, and part something else entirely. The moonfire mark on her wrist had grown warmer, more active, as if responding to the child within her. The palace was a labyrinth of politics and danger. Queen Dowager Lyra, Kaelor's mother, made no secret of her disdain for Lyra. "You're weak," the older woman said one morning, cornering Lyra in the garden. "My son needs a strong mate, someone with power and connections. Instead, he chose a nobody." When you fail to produce the heirs the prophecy demands, when your common blood proves too thin to carry royal children, he'll set you aside. Lyra lifted her chin, channeling a strength she didn't entirely feel. I'm carrying his child now, Your Grace. The first of the 10. One child means nothing, Lyra hissed. You could miscarry. You could birth a daughter. You could die in childbed, as so many weak women do. But Lyra didn't miscarry. The pregnancy progressed, and with each passing week, strange things began happening around her. Plants in the garden bloomed out of season when she walked past. Servants reported seeing a faint glow around her at night. And the curse that plagued the kingdom seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. Kaelor noticed. He began spending more time with her, no longer the cold king from their wedding night but someone softer, more uncertain. He would rest his hand on her swelling belly and speak to their unborn child in a language Lyra didn't recognize, old words that made her Moonfire pulse in recognition. My father used to speak that language, Kaelor told her one evening as they sat by the fire in their chambers. Before he died. He said it was the tongue of the first wolves, the ones who made the pact with the old gods. What happened to him? Lyra asked gently. Your father? Kaelor's expression darkened. He grew ill suddenly. The healers couldn't save him. I was 19, barely ready to rule. And ever since, the curse has grown stronger. Sometimes I wonder if his death was the beginning of it all. Lyra reached out and took his hand, a gesture that surprised them both. You're a good king, Kaelor. I see how hard you work, how much you care. That matters. He looked at their joined hands as if seeing them for the first time. I was taught that caring was weakness. That a king must be hard as stone, unyielding as iron. But with you, I find I want to be something else. Something more. Before she could respond, a sharp pain lanced through her belly. Lyra gasped, doubling over, and her moonfire exploded outward in a burst of silvery flames. Kaelor leaped back with a shout of alarm as the fire engulfed her, but instead of burning, it danced across her skin like living light. What is this? Kaelor demanded, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. Lyra, what are you? But the pain intensified, and Lyra couldn't answer. The baby, something was wrong with the baby. She felt the curse then, really felt it for the first time. It was alive, a dark presence that had been waiting, coiled around her child, trying to snuff out this new life before it could be born. No, Lyra gritted out through clenched teeth. You will not have this child. The moonfire responded to her will, burning brighter, hotter, diving inward to wrap around the baby in protective flames. She felt the curse recoil, felt it retreat in the face of her ancient power. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the pain vanished. Lyra collapsed against Kaelor, who had rushed forward to catch her. The moonfire faded, leaving only the faint glow of her mark visible on her wrist. Your moonfire blessed, Kaelor breathed, his arms tight around her. By the old gods, you carry the rarest gift in existence. Please don't tell anyone, Lyra begged, exhaustion making her voice weak. They'll try to use me. Or destroy me. My mother warned me. Kaelor's hand stroked her hair, gentle and protective. I won't tell. Your secret is safe. But Lyra, this changes everything. The curse isn't just some abstract darkness. It's actively trying to prevent the prophecy. It's trying to kill our children before they're born. Then we'll fight it, Lyra said with fierce determination. Together. But they weren't alone in their knowledge. High Priest Maelor had been standing in the shadows outside their chamber, his ear pressed to the door, and he'd heard everything. His lips curved into a cold smile as he retreated down the corridor. Moonfire. Perfect. This would make destroying the prophecy so much easier than he'd anticipated. The months passed, and Lyra's belly grew round with their first child. Despite the curse's attempt to harm the baby, despite the constant pressure from court to produce a male heir, despite the Queen Dowager's continued hostility, Lyra found unexpected happiness. Kaelor was changing, becoming warmer, more open. He would read to her in the evenings, ancient texts about the first wolves and their magic. He would hold her when nightmares woke her, whispering reassurances until she fell back asleep. "I never thought I could feel this way," he confessed one night, his hand splayed across her belly, feeling their son kick. "I was taught to close off my heart, to see relationships as political tools. But you, Lyra, you've shown me something different." "What's that?" she asked, her fingers tangling with his. "That maybe being king doesn't mean being alone. That maybe strength comes from connection, not isolation." When labor began, it was long and difficult. The curse fought her every step of the way, trying to strangle the child with his own birth cord, trying to still his heart before he could draw a breath. But Lyra's moonfire blazed through the birthing chamber, so bright the midwives had to shield their eyes. She pushed with all her strength, all her will, all her desperate love for this child she'd never met. And then he was there, crying lustily, perfect and whole. A son with his father's dark hair and eyes that held a hint of silver at their depths. "The first of the 10, the priestess announced, her voice carrying through the palace. "The prophecy begins." Kaelor held his son with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face unashamedly. "He's perfect. Lyra, he's perfect." They named him Aldrich, and his birth seemed to lift some shadow from the kingdom. The crops that had been failing suddenly flourished. Children who'd been sick began to heal. The curse had weakened, just as the prophecy promised. But in the shadows, Maelor plotted. He'd seen the moonfire, understood what it meant. This Omega Queen was more than just a vessel. She was a threat to his plans, to the dark power he served. He would need to move carefully, but he would find a way to remove her. The prophecy could not be allowed to succeed. The second winter brought another pregnancy, another son. This one Lyra named Brennan, and with his birth, more of the curse lifted. Rivers that had run foul became clear again. The forests that had been dying began to recover. Kaelor was beside himself with joy and relief. "It's working," he told Lyra as they lay together with their 2 sons sleeping in cradles nearby. "The prophecy is working. 8 more, and the kingdom will be saved." But Lyra felt the moonfire growing stronger with each birth, felt it becoming harder to control. The mark on her wrist now glowed constantly, visible even through clothing. She wore long sleeves and gloves, but she knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed. That someone was Maelor. He came to her chambers one afternoon when Kaelor was away dealing with a border dispute. The High Priest's smile was cold as winter frost. "Your Majesty," he said with mocking courtesy. "Or should I say, Moonfire Witch?" Lyra's blood froze. "What do you want?" "The truth, for starters. How long did you think you could hide what you are? How long before the king realizes you're not his salvation but his doom?" "I don't know what you mean," Lyra said, trying to keep her voice steady. Maelor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Don't play ignorant with me. I know the old texts. I know what Moonfire really is. It's not a gift from the old gods. It's a curse in itself. Every woman who's ever carried that mark has burned out by her 30th year, consumed by her own power. And you're using it to birth these children. You're killing yourself one son at a time." Lyra's hand instinctively went to her wrist, covering the mark. "Even if that's true, what concern is it of yours?" "Because the prophecy speaks of more than just 10 sons, Maelor hissed, stepping closer. "It speaks of the mother's choice. On the birth of the 10th child, the mother will decide the fate of the Alpha King. Life or death. And when your moonfire consumes you, when you burn out at the moment of that final birth, your death will trigger the king's. The prophecy isn't salvation. It's a trap." "You're lying," Lyra said, but doubt gnawed at her heart. "Why would you tell me this?" "Because I want you to run. I want you to flee before you birth that 10th child. If you truly love the king, you'll save him by leaving. Or," Maelor's smile turned vicious, "you can stay and watch him die by your hand." The priest left her alone with thoughts that churned like storm clouds. Was he telling the truth? Could her moonfire really kill Kaelor at the end? She pulled out the old journal her mother had left her, the one she'd been too afraid to read completely. Now she forced herself to turn to the final pages, to read the words her mother had written in a shaking hand. The Moonfire is both blessing and curse. It gives us power beyond measure, but that power demands payment. I feel myself burning out, daughter. I won't live to see your 20th year. But know this, the greatest act of Moonfire is sacrifice. When the flames consume us, we can choose to let them destroy, or we can choose to let them transform. That choice is yours alone. Lyra's hands trembled as she closed the journal. Her mother had died just before Lyra's 20th birthday, burned out by the very gift she'd tried to teach her daughter to control. Was that Lyra's fate too? And would she take Kaelor with her? When Kaelor returned that evening, he found her sitting in darkness, tears streaming down her face. He was at her side in an instant, gathering her close. What's wrong? What happened? Lyra wanted to tell him everything. Wanted to confess her fears about the prophecy, about the Moonfire, about Maelor's warnings. But the words stuck in her throat. If she told him, he might send her away to protect himself. Or worse, he might insist they continue anyway, driven by duty to save the kingdom even at the cost of his own life. I'm just tired, she lied. The pregnancies, the births, it's taking more out of me than I expected. Kaelor kissed her forehead gently. Then we'll slow down. The prophecy says 10 winters, not 10 consecutive winters. We can take time between the children. Your health is more important than any timeline. But the kingdom, Lyra protested weakly. We'll survive a few extra months between heirs. You won't. And Lyra, I need you to understand something. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Somewhere along the way, this stopped being about the prophecy for me. I don't see you as the mother of my heirs anymore. I see you as my queen. My partner. The woman I love. The words hit her like a physical blow. Love. He'd said love. And looking into his eyes, she saw the truth of it written there, clear and undeniable. I love you too, she whispered, and it was both the most wonderful and most terrifying thing she'd ever said. Because love made what she had to do so much harder. We're getting close to the climax, and you won't believe what happens next. If you're invested in Lyra and Kaelor's story, help us out by smashing that like button and sharing this video with fellow werewolf romance fans. Your support means everything. The third winter came, and with it, another son. Cashin was born with the strongest hint of silver in his eyes yet, and the moment Lyra held him, she felt the curse react with rage. It lashed out through the kingdom, causing storms and earthquakes, fighting against its own weakening. Maelor used the chaos to his advantage. He began spreading whispers throughout the court, subtle suggestions that the queen's power was unnatural, dangerous. He showed ancient texts to the Queen Dowager, carefully selected passages that painted Moonfire as destructive rather than creative. The king's mother came to Lyra's chambers, her face pale with fear and anger. Is it true? Are you Moonfire blessed? Lyra couldn't deny it, not with the mark glowing so brightly on her wrist. Yes, she admitted. I didn't ask for this power. I was born with it. Do you know what those texts say about Moonfire wielders? Lyra demanded. They say the power always consumes its host. They say it spreads to those closest to the wielder. They say it kills the one the wielder loves most at the moment of their greatest triumph. Those are just stories, Lyra tried to argue, but her voice lacked conviction. Are they? Then explain why every Moonfire wielder in history has died young. Explain why their mates and children often followed them to early graves. You're a plague, girl. A beautiful, glowing plague. And you're going to destroy my son. The words haunted Lyra through the following months. She began pulling away from Kaelor, making excuses not to share his bed, avoiding his touch. The distance between them grew, and she could see the hurt and confusion in his eyes, but she didn't know what else to do. If she stayed close, if they continued to have children, she might kill him. But if she left, the prophecy would fail and the kingdom would fall to the curse. Kaelor confronted her one evening after she'd refused his embrace for the 10th time. "What's happening between us? What have I done wrong?" "Nothing," Lyra said, her back to him as she stared out the window at the moonlit gardens. "You've done nothing wrong. Then why won't you look at me? Why won't you let me touch you? We used to talk for hours. Now you barely speak to me. Lyra, please. Tell me what's wrong." She wanted to tell him. Wanted to collapse into his arms and confess everything. But Maelor's words echoed in her mind, "If you truly love the king, you'll save him by leaving." Maybe this marriage was a mistake, she forced herself to say, each word cutting her like broken glass. Maybe the prophecy was never meant to include love. Just duty. The silence that followed was devastating. When Kaelor finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "I see. You regret choosing me." "I never chose you," Lyra said cruelly, hating herself even as the words left her mouth. "I was selected. Forced into this role. Maybe it's time I stopped pretending this is anything more than a political arrangement." She heard him leave, heard the door close with terrible finality. And then she collapsed to the floor, her moonfire blazing out of control as she sobbed. What was she doing? She was pushing away the only person who'd ever truly seen her, loved her. But it was the only way to save him. Wasn't it? The 4th, 5th, and 6th winters passed in a blur of pain and isolation. Lyra gave birth to 3 more sons, Darius, Elian, and Finn, each birth more difficult than the last. The moonfire was burning brighter, consuming more of her energy. She could feel herself fading, becoming more fire than flesh. Kaelor had retreated behind his cold mask again, the warm, open man she'd fallen in love with buried beneath duty and hurt. He attended the births, fulfilled his role as father and king, but the connection between them was severed. They were strangers sharing a throne. The Queen Dowager pressed her advantage, suggesting that perhaps Lyra should be confined for everyone's safety. The war ministers muttered about the drain on resources, 6 princes to raise and 4 more to come, and the queen showing signs of weakness. Maelor watched it all with satisfaction, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came during the 7th winter. Lyra was heavily pregnant again, her body so weakened by the constant use of moonfire that she could barely stand. The mark on her wrist no longer just glowed, it burned, eating away at her flesh like acid. Maelor came to her chambers with guards and several court officials. By order of the council, he announced, and with the reluctant agreement of the king, "You are to be confined to these rooms for the duration of this pregnancy and all subsequent ones. Your power has been deemed too dangerous to allow freedom of movement." Lyra looked past him to where Kaelor stood in the doorway, his face carefully blank. "You agreed to this?" "For your safety and the kingdom's," Kaelor said, but she could hear the pain underlying his formal tone. "You've been burning yourself out, Lyra. Everyone can see it. Perhaps with rest and confinement, you can preserve your strength for the remaining births. Or perhaps you're just locking me away because I've become an inconvenience," Lyra shot back, anger flaring hot in her chest. "A useful womb that's outlived its welcome. That's not fair. Isn't it? You wanted 10 sons. Well, you're more than halfway there. Just 3 more after this one, and you'll be free of me. Free to find a mate who doesn't frighten your court or challenge your authority." Kaelor's mask cracked, and she saw raw emotion flash across his face. "Is that what you think? That I want to be free of you? What else should I think? You've barely spoken to me in 2 years. You treat me like a broodmare, not a wife. Because you pushed me away," Kaelor exploded, his control finally breaking. "You shut me out. You looked at me with fear instead of love. What was I supposed to do? Beg you to let me in when you'd made it clear you didn't want me?" The 7th son, Gareth, was born in that confined chamber, and something in Lyra broke along with him. She could feel the moonfire consuming her faster now, could feel death creeping closer with each passing day. She had 3 more children to bear, 3 more chances for the power to destroy her and possibly Kaelor with her. That night, she made her decision. She would run. She would leave the palace, leave Kaelor, leave everything. Better to fail the prophecy than to kill the man she loved. She waited until everyone slept, then used the last of her strength to burn through the locks on her door. The Moonfire responded sluggishly, tired and fading, but it was enough. She made it to the stables, stole a horse, and rode into the night. Behind her, the palace erupted in chaos as guards discovered her empty chamber. And in the royal bedroom, Kaelor felt the moment she fled through the bond they shared. He stood at his window, watching the distant figure disappear into the darkness, and wondered if he should let her go. But the kingdom was dying again. Without the 8th, 9th, and 10th sons, the curse would return in full force. Everything they'd sacrificed would be for nothing. He made his choice. He would find her. And this time, they would face whatever was coming together. Lyra rode for 3 days before exhaustion forced her to stop. She'd made it to the Northern Territories, a wild region of frozen forests and abandoned villages. She found shelter in an old hunter's cabin and collapsed inside, her body finally giving out. She woke to contractions. No. It was too soon. She wasn't due for another month. But the baby was coming, the 8th son, and she was alone with no midwife, no healers, nothing but her fading Moonfire to see her through. The birth was agony. Lyra screamed into the empty cabin, her power flaring and dying like a guttering candle. She could feel the curse fighting her, trying to kill this child, trying to kill her. But she wouldn't let it win. Not yet. Not until all 10 were born. With a final push, the 8th son entered the world. Lyra caught him in trembling hands, using the last sparks of her Moonfire to warm him, to breathe life into his lungs. He cried, a strong, healthy sound that brought tears to her eyes. 8, she whispered, holding him close. 8 sons. 2 more. That's when she heard the howl. Distant but drawing closer. She recognized it instantly. Kaelor. He'd tracked her across 3 days and hundreds of miles. Of course he had. He was an alpha, the king of all wolves. Nothing could hide from him for long. She should run. Should take the baby and disappear deeper into the wilderness. But she was so tired. So very tired. And part of her, a part she'd been trying to ignore, wanted him to find her. Wanted to see his face one more time before the Moonfire consumed her completely. Kaelor burst through the cabin door in his human form, wild-eyed and desperate. His gaze found her immediately, took in the blood, the exhaustion, the newborn in her arms. You gave birth alone, he said, his voice breaking on the words. You could have died. You could have both died. Better that than what's coming, Lyra whispered. Better that than killing you. Kaelor crossed the cabin in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside her. His hands hovered over her face, her shoulders, the baby, as if he was afraid she'd shatter at his touch. Killing me? What are you talking about? The prophecy. Lyra's laugh was bitter and edged with hysteria. Maelor told me the truth. When I birth the 10th son, when the Moonfire finally consumes me, it will take you too. The mother decides the fate of the Alpha King. Life or death. And my death means yours. Kaelor's expression transformed from concern to fury. Maelor. That manipulative bastard. Lyra, listen to me. He was lying. How do you know? Because I found the seer, the real one, not the priestess Maelor installed at the palace. She's been hiding in the northern mountains for decades, waiting for this moment. He reached into his pack and pulled out an ancient scroll. She gave me this. The true prophecy, not the version Maelor has been feeding us. Lyra's hand shook as she took the scroll, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. The words were written in the old tongue, but somehow she could read them, the Moonfire translating as her eyes moved across the page. 10 sons shall be born of fire and fate, the true mother marked by moon and flame. Each birth shall weaken the ancient curse, each child a key to unlock salvation. But the 10th birth brings the final test, the mother must choose between consuming fire or transforming flame. If she burns alone, the king shall fall. If she burns with love, the king shall rise. Only in willing sacrifice, in the joining of two flames, can the curse be broken forever. Lyra looked up at Kaelor, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. Joining of two flames? Kaelor, you don't have Moonfire. Don't I? He pulled up his sleeve, and Lyra gasped. There, on his wrist, was a mark she'd never seen before. Not Moonfire, but something complementary. Solar marks, golden flames intertwined with sun symbols. How long have you had that? Since the night we conceived our first child. I thought it was just a strange rash at first, but it's been growing stronger with each birth. The seer explained it. The Moonfire called to something dormant in my bloodline, something from the first Alpha King. We're two halves of an ancient power, Lyra. Separately, we burn out and die. Together, we transform into something that can finally destroy the curse. So the prophecy was never about me dying alone, Lyra said slowly, understanding dawning. It was about us dying together, or transforming together. But Maelor twisted it, made me think I had to leave you to save you. He's been manipulating us from the beginning. Kaelor's jaw clenched. My father didn't die of illness. Maelor poisoned him because he was getting too close to discovering the truth about the curse. He's the curse, Lyra. Or at least, he's been feeding it, strengthening it, using it to maintain his own power. The baby stirred in Lyra's arms, and Kaelor's expression softened. What's his name? Hadrian, Lyra said. I thought of it on the ride here. It means dark one, like you. Kaelor's fingers gently stroked the baby's head. He's perfect. They're all perfect. And I've missed so much, been so cold and distant, because I thought you wanted me to be. I was trying to protect you, Lyra said, fresh tears falling. I was so scared of what the Moonfire might do, what I might do, that I pushed away the only person who ever made me feel whole. Kaelor leaned forward and kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. No more running. No more pushing away. We face the last two births together, and whatever comes after. But first, you need to rest. You're barely conscious. We can't stay here, Lyra protested weakly. Maelor knows I fled. He'll send people to find me, to stop the prophecy. Let him try. Kaelor's smile was fierce and protective. I'm the Alpha King, and you're my queen. Anyone who wants to harm you goes through me first. They stayed in the cabin for a week, hidden by old magic the seer had taught Kaelor. Lyra recovered slowly, her Moonfire stabilizing now that she wasn't fighting it alone. Kaelor cared for her and baby Hadrian with gentle devotion, and in those quiet days, they rebuilt what had been broken between them. I'm sorry, Lyra said one evening as they sat by the fire, Hadrian nursing at her breast. For everything I said, for pushing you away. I thought I was being strong, but I was just being a coward. You were being human, Kaelor corrected. You were scared. I should have pushed harder, should have demanded you tell me what was wrong instead of retreating behind my own walls. We were both fools, Lyra said with a small smile. Two powerful, magical fools who nearly destroyed everything because we couldn't communicate. Then let's make a pact, Kaelor said, taking her free hand in his. No more secrets. No more walls. Whatever comes with the 9th and 10th births, we face it together. Agreed? Agreed. But their respite couldn't last forever. On the 8th day, Kaelor's scouts brought news. Maelor had declared Lyra a traitor and a threat to the kingdom. He'd convinced the council that she'd fled to prevent the prophecy's completion, that her Moonfire had driven her mad. The Queen Dowager had supported his claims, still believing Lyra was a danger to her son. Worse, Maelor had taken their 7 other sons into his custody, claiming he was protecting them from their unstable mother. He has our children, Lyra breathed, horror washing over her. Kaelor, he has our babies. Kaelor's eyes blazed with barely contained rage. Then we go back. We take them back. And we end Maelor's schemes once and for all. But I'm in no condition to fight. Lyra gestured at herself. I can barely walk across the room without getting winded. You don't have to fight. You just have to survive long enough to birth the last 2 sons. I'll handle Maelor. They rode back to the palace under cover of darkness, Hadrian bundled against Lyra's chest. Kaelor had sent word ahead to those he trusted, the few council members who'd never fully believed Maelor's lies, the guards who'd served his father before him. A quiet coup was being arranged. But when they reached the palace, they found it transformed. Dark magic pulsed from every stone, and the sky above churned with unnatural storm clouds. Maelor had dropped his pretense entirely. He'd seized control, declared himself High Regent until the king could be found, and begun conducting dark rituals using the princes as focal points. He's trying to steal their power, the seer said, appearing beside them like a ghost. The boys carry pieces of your combined magic. If Maelor can drain them, he can complete his own transformation, become something beyond human or wolf. Over my dead body, Kaelor growled. That's exactly what he's hoping for, the seer replied grimly. He knows you'll come. He's turned the palace into a trap. Then we spring it, Lyra said, surprising everyone including herself. But on our terms, not his. The plan was desperate and dangerous. Lyra would enter the palace openly, surrendering herself to Maelor. While he was distracted with her, Kaelor would infiltrate through the old tunnels beneath the palace, the ones only the royal family knew about. He'd free the children and get them to safety while Lyra kept Maelor's attention. I don't like sending you in alone, Kaelor said as they prepared. If something goes wrong. It won't, Lyra interrupted, though her heart hammered with fear. I'm not the scared village girl anymore, Kaelor. I'm the mother of 8 princes and the queen of this realm. Maelor should be afraid of me. Kaelor pulled her close, careful of baby Hadrian between them. I love you. Whatever happens in there, remember that. I love you too. Now go save our sons. Lyra walked through the palace gates with her head high, Hadrian in her arms. Guards surrounded her immediately, but she didn't resist. She let them escort her to the throne room where Maelor waited, seated on Kaelor's throne like he'd already won. The wayward queen returns, Maelor said with false pleasantness. And she's brought the 8th son. How convenient. Where are my children? Lyra demanded. If you've hurt them. They're perfectly safe, undergoing a necessary procedure. Think of it as insurance. As long as I have them, the king won't dare move against me. And once I've extracted their power, I'll have no more need for you or your mate. You'll never get away with this, Lyra said. The kingdom won't accept you as ruler. Won't they? I've been the true power behind the throne for decades. Kings come and go, but I endure. And once I ascend to true godhood, once I complete the ritual, I'll rule not just this kingdom but all the lands beyond. That's when Lyra felt it, a surge through the bond she shared with Kaelor. He'd found the children. They were safe. Relief flooded through her, and she let her moonfire flare, no longer bothering to hide it. You talk too much, Maelor, she said, and her voice echoed with ancient power. Did you really think I came here alone? Did you really think the Alpha King would let you have his children? Maelor's expression transformed to fury. What have you done? Given you exactly what you deserve, Lyra said. And then the walls exploded inward as Kaelor burst through in his wolf form, massive and terrible, with loyal guards and council members behind him. The battle that followed was chaos. Maelor's corrupted guards fought against Kaelor's forces. Dark magic clashed with moonfire and solar flame. The palace shook with the force of powers that hadn't been unleashed in centuries. Lyra fought too, her moonfire blazing even as she protected Hadrian. She burned through Maelor's dark creatures, cleansed the corruption he'd spread through the palace stones. But the effort was costing her. She could feel the fire consuming her faster, burning through her life force. Kaelor, in human form now, faced Maelor in single combat. The High Priest had revealed his true form, something twisted and ancient, barely humanoid. They traded blows that cracked the marble floor, their powers clashing in explosions of light and darkness. You cannot win, Maelor hissed. I've fed on this curse for 50 years. I am the curse. Kill me and it spreads unchecked. Leave me alive and I'll hunt your children forever. You've already lost. That's when Lyra understood. The final piece of the prophecy. If she burns alone, the king shall fall. If she burns with love, the king shall rise. Only in willing sacrifice, in the joining of two flames, can the curse be broken forever. Kaelor, she called out, and he turned to her immediately. I know what we have to do. For the 9th and 10th sons. For all of it. She saw understanding dawn in his eyes. No. Lyra, there has to be another way. There isn't. We both know it. The Moonfire and Solar Flame have to burn together, completely, to destroy the curse at its source. That means we both die, Kaelor said, his voice breaking. No, Lyra said with sudden certainty. It means we both transform. Remember the seer's words. We don't burn out. We burn through. We become something new. The 9th winter arrives now, the seer's voice rang out from somewhere in the chaos. The child comes. And Lyra felt it, the impossible pregnancy beginning, magic and will combining to create life at an accelerated rate. Her belly swelled, the 9th son forming in moments instead of months. It should have been agonizing, but Lyra's Moonfire burned so hot now that pain couldn't touch her. Kaelor was at her side instantly, his solar marks blazing. His hands found hers, and their powers intertwined, spiraling together in a double helix of flame. And the 10th follows, the seer continued. For they are twins, the final keys born together as one. Lyra's body convulsed as not one but two children forced their way into the world. Kaelor held her, his power feeding hers, supporting her through the impossible birth. And Maelor, seeing what was happening, screamed in rage and fear. No. You'll destroy everything. The balance, the curse, the power, all of it. That's the idea, Kaelor said grimly. The twins were born in a blast of silver and gold light. A boy and a girl, the 9th and 10th children, their eyes pure silver and gold respectively. The seer caught them, wrapped them quickly, and retreated to safety. Now, Lyra gasped. Kaelor, now. They stood together, hands clasped, their combined powers building to a crescendo. The Moonfire and Solar Flame merged, became something neither silver nor gold but blindingly white. Pure transformation magic, the kind that had created the first wolves, the kind that could unmake curses woven into the fabric of reality itself. I love you, Kaelor said, his eyes locked on hers. I love you, Lyra answered. In this life and whatever comes after. They released the power together, and the world exploded into light. When the light faded, the palace was silent. The curse was gone, burned away so completely that not even a whisper of it remained. Maelor was nothing but ash, destroyed by the very transformation he'd tried to prevent. And in the center of the throne room, where Lyra and Kaelor had stood, there was only emptiness. No, not emptiness. Two figures, translucent and glowing, began to take shape. Lyra and Kaelor, but changed. Their bodies were solid again, but marked with swirling patterns of silver and gold that pulsed with gentle light. Their eyes glowed softly, hers silver, his gold. We're alive, Lyra whispered in wonder, looking at her hands, at the way the Moonfire now flowed through her without burning. We're more than alive, Kaelor said. We're transformed. Bound together in a way that can never be broken. The seer approached with the twins, and behind her, Kaelor's guards brought the other 8 sons. All 10 children, all healthy, all staring at their parents with wide eyes. The prophecy is fulfilled, the seer announced. The curse is broken. The kingdom is saved. And the Alpha King and his queen have become the first of a new kind of being. Eternal guardians, bound by love and sacrifice. Lyra took her newborn daughter, marveling at how right it felt. 10 children. Not 10 sons as everyone had thought, but 9 sons and 1 daughter. The prophecy had been misinterpreted from the start. What's her name? Kaelor asked, stroking the baby girl's cheek. Seraphine, Lyra said, and laughed at Kaelor's surprised expression. Not after Lady Seraphine. After the old word for transformation. She's our miracle, Kaelor. They all are. The kingdom did enter a new era. The Queen Dowager, seeing what her son and his maid had become, finally accepted Lyra and begged forgiveness for her hostility. The council bowed before their transformed rulers, pledging loyalty to the new order. And the 10 children grew strong and healthy, each carrying a piece of their parents' magic, each destined to protect the realm in their own way. Years passed. Lyra and Kaelor ruled together, their bond unbreakable, their love a legend told throughout the land. The Moonfire and Solar Flame had merged so completely that neither could exist without the other. They were two halves of one whole, exactly as they were always meant to be. One evening, standing on the palace balcony and watching their children play in the gardens below, Kaelor pulled Lyra close. "Do you remember," he asked, "what you said on our wedding night? When I told you about the 10 sons?" Lyra smiled. "I asked what if I refused. I was so scared and angry. You were magnificent. You've been magnificent every day since. I threatened you with duty and prophecy, but you gave me something far greater." "What's that?" "Choice," Kaelor said simply. "You chose to stay when you could have run. You chose to fight when you could have surrendered. You chose to love me when I gave you every reason not to. And that choice, that gift, saved not just me but the entire kingdom." Lyra turned in his arms, her silver eyes meeting his golden ones. "Sometimes destiny chooses harshly," she said, echoing words the seer had once spoken. "But love rewrites the ending." "Always," Kaelor agreed, and kissed her as the sun set over their kingdom, painting the sky in shades of silver and gold. The prophecy had been fulfilled. Not through blind obedience to fate, but through the courageous choice to face that fate together. 10 children had been born, not as keys to lock away a curse, but as symbols of transformation and hope.